in one of your old podcasts, you said something that stuck with me, obviously, all these years later, and it was you got to make the free stuff so good that they are just desperate to see what you have behind a paywall. And I'm like, you know what? Yes, because and I think this has lessened, but there was for a long time, it's like gatekeeping, quote unquote, that buzzword. And there was a lot of people I don't want to share my formula because it's a secret sauce and whatever, like no hate to them. Fine. I get it. And I looked at myself as a stylist and I'm like, I would never buy your course because I don't even know your style of education. Like if you don't even tell me a formula, I mean, how do you foil? I don't know. Just the after photos is not really doing it for me.
Carly Zanoni has grown a 700,000 person following and built her empire as an independent educator under her brand, The Blonde Chronicles. Carly is beloved by all of us who know her for her vulnerability, authenticity, and unique way to make complex topics simple. But the real story behind life as a digital educator is anything but easy. A lot of us think we know the Blonde Chronicles, but when I got to sit across from Carly, I wanted to dig into topics like, okay, so I know you as Carly, but some people will watch this and say, oh my gosh, Britt interviewed the Blonde Chronicles. So for people who don't know you at all, can you give us some context around who you are, where you work, what your business looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Carly. I live in San Diego, and my business started, in 2007. So we're going on 19 years now. And I worked behind the chair, just figuring it out like everybody else. Worked behind the chair for 10, 11 years. And I kind of was like given this opportunity to educate and just really casual. My friend Drea Henty said, can you come teach a class in my salon? And I was like, absolutely no idea what you're talking about. But okay, she said, just do hair and tell us what you're doing. And so long story short, that kind of led into me thinking, okay, I like this. So probably almost 10 years ago, I kind of dabbled in education, still took clients behind the chair. And then about 3 years ago, I fully stepped away from behind the chair, and now I just focus on education and brand partnerships. So it's been a journey, but that's me in a nutshell.
It's been a ride, and we're glad that your ride took you to this destination.
Yes, me too.
You told me that one of the bigger mistakes that you made in your career was maybe jumping into booth rental a little bit too early. Can you take us back to that first year, where you went right after school, and why you decided to booth rent and why it might have been a mistake?
Yes, 100%. So I got out of school, and in 2007, assisting was not as big as it is now. It kind of seems obvious now that you graduate and it's probably the best idea to assist. That was not a thing, which sounds funny, but it really wasn't. So I got out of school. It's weird because I was almost too confident, but yet had no confidence in my skills. It's kind of like, okay, I'll work at this commission salon. And essentially, the owner really didn't do much for getting a clientele for me. I was pretty much sitting there and like Facebook messaging everybody I knew, the typical whatever. And he would make us come in every Monday for education, which was not against, but it was us doing these extremely avant-garde looks, and we had to find a model every week. And so I'm like at the Mac counter at the mall, like, can you be my model for this asymmetrical haircut? Of course, nobody wanted to do this. So I just, after a couple months, I was like, I don't think this is doing much for me. I'm not really learning anything I'm going to use. And I'm not really I was making minimum wage hourly because I'm not getting any clients. So like, it's a good idea. Me and my 1.5 clients are going to head right across the street, and I'm going to be a booth renter. No idea what I was doing. I was very young. I was 20 at the time. And so luckily I was living at home. I was making no money. I talk openly and often about how I made $12,000 the first year I did hair. And that was probably being generous, honestly. That's what my taxes say. But, I just regret it. Well, I don't regret it, but I think it was a mistake because, for one, I had no technical skill knowledge outside of what I learned in school, which we know is not exceptional. And also, I think that I would have really benefited from a commission salon that was actively helping me get clients and helping guide me through just the simple things. Like I went to, at that time, Maylee's, Salon Centric, whatever it is now, and bought one box of every single Shades EQ color, like a 6-pack for every single color. And it was thousands of dollars. And then I didn't use half the color. Stuff like that where I would have learned if I had worked in a salon where someone else was buying the color. Okay, I use like 5 colors and that's pretty much it. I just think it was a rough start and getting clients was much harder than I thought. So do I regret it? No, it taught me a lot, but was it financially or the best decision for my business? 100% no.
Thank you for sharing the honest truth about what it looks like booth renting from the start. And you're right, there is the confidence in being able to do it, but then there's the context and the experience of how to do it well.
Yes.
And that's usually the biggest gap.
100%. And it was like I would make these mistakes and then I have nobody to help me fix them. And so I'm just like a mess, just nervous every day coming into work. And you don't think about all the little things that go into running a business. Not only obviously the finances are huge, but like how long do I book a client for? How do I talk to clients and get that rapport? All that stuff that's what you learn with experience. And if there's somebody there guiding you to help you through that, you have such a one-up on people like me that are just like winging it. So
at your peak, when you were behind the chair, maybe full-time, really working to build a clientele, what did your business look like?
It was great, but I was working a lot, I will say. I was one of those people, again, that era of like quote unquote hustle culture, and you aren't anything if you're not working like 10-hour days, 5 days a week, that kind of a thing. And so I really was thriving. I was making a lot of money, but I also was kind of maybe feeling a little burned out. I don't know if burned out on doing hair, but definitely the schedule of, I worked Saturdays for like 12 years and I was seeing my friends do stuff on Saturdays and that whole thing of, oh, I want to do stuff, So it was great financially, but I think I was really struggling, that famous word, balance. It didn't exist. And I was okay with that for a long time. And I really placed a lot of value on how many hours I worked. Literally, like, how many clients am I squeezing in? How many hours a day? How many days a week am I working? When really that's not what success looks like for me anymore. But then it really did. So it was great, but I was, emotionally there were parts that were like tough.
You and I first exchanged DMs in 2019. I went back and looked.
Oh my God, I love it.
This is our first time meeting in person.
Yes.
But I feel like we've been connected for such a long time.
Yeah.
And you're one of the people I look at and I'm like, Carly and I kind of came up together. Like we both jumped into digital education really early on in its inception.
Yep.
And we're kind of the first wave of what education looks like today.
Yes, 100%.
When you were building as an educator, I know you did that class for Drea and I'm assuming you built from there. Did you start teaching in person first? When did you go online? When did you know you were ready?
Yeah, I did start teaching in person. So I had that thing with Drea where it literally was, I have never done this. And I truly just had my friend come and I did her hair and there were like a bunch of people standing around and I was like, okay, well, here's what I do now. It was so casual, no tickets, nothing. After that, the salon I worked at, the owner said, let's just, like, each of the stylists kind of taught a class. So we each taught our own signature thing, whatever. So she said, why don't you just teach one to our salon? And so I did that. And, when you first start educating, it's like anything else. You're not probably the best at it. So these were a good little, like, dipping my toe into that education pool. And from there, I think the owner, again, was like, why don't you try teaching another class and let's just try and sell tickets? I think, and she's like, the salon people will come too. So you won't necessarily feel like nobody's going to show up, which is always like everyone's biggest fear. So I sold tickets. I think I've sold like 7 tickets. Like it was not groundbreaking by any means. So from there, I just said, okay, I'm going to try this a little bit and taught in-person classes. So that was my whole gig for probably at least a year, occasionally teaching classes. Then getting ready for 2020, I have this 12 city, like I'm doing 1 class a month. I'm bringing my assistant, like trying to like make this a thing. And then I'm in my second class of the year in Northern California. And in the middle of the class, someone's like, oh, there's a government shutdown. And so I'm kind of thinking like, okay, whatever. The salon owner's like, hey, we're just going to pause for like a week, do what you feel is right. But you need to like move some clients. So move my clients around. I'm like, see you in 2 weeks. And then of course, like we know what happened. Months later, we're barely back, especially in California. It was a tough time. So I had previously spoken with my assistant about, I kind of want to dabble in like something online. There was one stylist that was doing a virtual like Instagram subscription. Basically, you pay and then you're added to this private Instagram account and there's short videos. I was like, that seems like a pretty feasible thing. So months before this shutdown, I had actually saved the Instagram account, the.bcu. I was literally at dinner with my friend and I was like, I want to name my education company something. And she's like, why don't you just do Blonde Chronicles University? And literally, she doesn't do hair, but she suggested this. And I'm like, okay, that's a good idea. So I saved the Instagram handle, the.bcu, just thinking maybe eventually. And of course, as we know, life gets busy. And then I had no time to do anything online because I'm so busy behind the chair. And then we got shut down and I was like, well, now's my chance. So it was very amateur. I mean, I was charging $10 a month and the quality was $10 a month worth. Like it was these crappy iPhone videos with like tons of stuff in the back that they were in my salon. So people were getting their hair done. Like these were authentic client videos. And I was kind of piecing them together and posting them on this Instagram account. And then it evolves from there. But I think the first entry into virtual education was that cheesy private Instagram. And it was a journey. And I really didn't expect it to be anything. I was kind of like, I've been teaching free classes in my kitchen on Instagram Live when that was a huge thing. Instagram Live like ruled the world. And then I'm like, well, why not just put these somewhere where like people have to pay something for them, and at least some of them. And then now here we are, and I like have an actual virtual education business. So it's been a ride for sure, and an unexpected one. I never really went into it being like, I'm going to teach virtual education, because that, like you said, we were some of the first. It was not a thing or what you aspire to do. You aspire to teach in-person classes and sell them out. And like, say COVID put an end to that, or a pause. So yeah, it's been a journey.
Our journey in that sense is similar in that for me, it was kind of like this supplemental experiment and opportunity. And never could I have imagined it would turn into what it has become.
100%.
Do you remember around-ish what the size of your following was when you started BCU, with the Instagram and all of that kind of stuff? What did your following look like? What was your audience like? And how successful was it at the beginning?
Yeah. I wish I had like documented that more. I wish I had documented my growth along the way, but I really haven't, to be honest. I would say it was around 150,000 followers. That was the only TikTok didn't exist. Nothing existed. Facebook, but I don't think it was doing much on there. So yeah, it was really probably around that. I would not say it was much bigger than that. So, at first, I will say I was extremely fortunate. And I do think the timing had a lot to do with this. Everybody was shut down at home. And I launched this at $10 a month. And I'm like, it could go one of two ways. Either people are so desperate to stay involved with some sort of education, and they're like, oh, $10, I can afford that, even if I'm not making any money. Or people are just, burned out on everything. They don't want to even invest in anything. And they're just like, I'm not doing this. So luckily for me, it was the option where people are willing to invest something. And the first weekend I launched it, there was 700 members. And I was like, oh my God. And I am not just saying this to like fish for compliments. I genuinely thought, I'm like, maybe I will have like 50 people. It was not this thing of this is going to be my job. It was same thing. Like, this is an experiment. It might supplement my income. And this is my only way to really get education out to people right now. So this other stylist that I had seen do this Instagram subscription had like 1,000 members, and my former assistant and I had kind of done the math, and I'm like, there's no way I'm ever gonna get to 1,000 people. And she's like, why not? Like, bless her, she's my biggest hype girl still to this day. I love her. And she's like, why not? You could do that. And so when there were 700 people the first weekend, I was like, okay. But then the anxiety sets in of like, well, are they gonna like this? Like, I'm really nervous that people are not going to get the value that they feel like they're paying for. That's a whole thing, and imposter syndrome. So I would say it was successful at first, but then came the pressure of, okay, I really have to deliver. I had promised one video a week. So, it's a lot of doll heads in my house. Nobody could take clients. So I would say it grew from like 2020 to 2023-ish was just straight up growth, which I realize is completely unusual. It's usually the other way around. So I think I was extremely fortunate. The timing for me was absolutely impeccable. And okay, I can, maybe I'm decent at doing education, but I'm telling you the quality of these videos was very bad. And I hit it at almost the perfect time where nobody was doing this and people were desperate for some connection like to the industry. So it did work out for me, but it was, it's still a journey. I mean, still figuring it out, and, started way back then too.
Completely agree with you on so many points. I do think the timing, the wind was at your back with the timing,
Yes,
for sure. But I think
100%.
that what you did right and what would still work now is you really served. Like, you showed up on Instagram and taught and shared and tips, and we trusted you. Like, I'm part of the mass where I was like, Carly's special, Carly's different. She actually cares. And so when you came to the market and you were like, I've got this opportunity, if it fits for you, let's get going. People were like, you fit for me. Like, I trust you and you've already enhanced my life. Like, why not dig deeper? And that was part of your spark. At what point in this journey did you stop taking clients? You no longer take clients regularly, correct?
Exactly.
When
correct.
did you stop?
I probably stopped in 2023, I would say. My daughter was around 2, and it became this point where, and at that point I was really only working behind the chair 2 days a week because I had slowed down because I had 2 kids at that point. And I just felt like that point where I'm like, 2 days a week is plenty for me. And I also want time to work on this education platform. So 2023, it was so sad, honestly, because some of my clients had truly been my clients since so early on. And they had grown up with me too, like we had been through marriages, divorces, kids, everything, illnesses, like the whole thing. So it was a tough choice, but I decided, okay, I can either go all in on this one thing, which is really way more scalable than working behind the chair will probably ever be, unless I went into salon ownership or like something else. Me as one person is really never going to be able to have the financial success that I could find coaching online. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So I made that choice, and it was a risk. I mean, my husband had a job, but, it's still a risk. I was contributing to our income in a huge way. And that was kind of it. And then I went to I still do a lot of hair because I take models and I shoot for my platform and like tutorials. But it's completely no schedule behind the chair.
Let's talk about the models for a minute.
Yeah.
I asked you, I said, how many models do you take? You guessed somewhere between 20 and 25 a year.
Yeah.
How do you find models, A, and B, are you only using them for BCU? Is there any other purpose in doing them?
Yeah, so one of my favorite ways to get models is just use my old clients because I know their hair, which I'm not always. Of course, always a lot of times there are models that I don't know, which adds another element of like salon reality to it, and that's great too. But a lot of times in BCU, I find that I'm trying to teach one particular thing. After 6 years and posting one video a week for 6 years, like I've hit a lot of topics. So now I'm getting really specific. I try and follow what's trending, or, gray blending is really popular now. So I know Sally from whatever, a lot of my old clients go to my former assistant. So I know that she won't care if I borrow them. So a lot of them are former clients. And not only do I love seeing them, but I do get this kind of cool, like result out of it. And I get to make a tutorial out of it. The main purpose, and I should go back and say, if I'm not finding a model from an old, if an old client is not becoming a model, I am posting on social media. For a long time, that got tough. I don't know what happened. I was not getting a bunch of responses, but it's gotten a bit better. So if I do need a model, if I'm traveling, I post on social media. I would say the main purpose of the models is to film long form tutorials with my videographer. Those go into BCU, and those are 30 to 45 minute videos that will actually teach you a look start to finish. I also take models for short form content that's much more casual. Yesterday I did my friend's hair, and I'm not wearing any makeup. We're in our PJs, and it's much more just I need a close up. I need this for a reel. I need this for a static post, that kind of thing. And then sometimes I just like to go in my friend's salon where all my friends work still, and I just want to be there and do hair, because that is the part I miss the most about being in a salon, is the social aspect. if you find a salon where you like the people and they're your friends, like nothing can replace that, in my opinion. So they're mostly, though, I'd say overall the models are for content and teaching.
How often are you planes and hotels and traveling around to educate at this point?
This year, 2026, I've really tried to scale back, but probably like did 6 trips this year, and it's June or it's May. So I mean, it's all right. Probably 2023, 2024, I was like 25 trips a year, and maybe like half that in 2025. Finally, I'm like, it's killing me. I can't. I mean, I love the opportunities and the things that I get to do once I'm there. It's the getting on the plane, getting to the airport, getting the transfer, like all that. It just feels very exhausting to me. And now my kids are at an age, they're 4 and 7, so they really miss me. They miss me when I'm gone. I'm that amazing. But they're very emotional about me leaving. So I try to keep that to a minimum as best I can.
When you travel to educate, is it you traveling as an independent educator? Are you traveling with a brand? A little bit of both?
A little bit of both. Now I haven't been teaching my own classes for the past year. It's just been too consuming with all the other stuff I'm doing, and I just don't have it in me to plan that, sell tickets, organize the lunch, all that stuff. So now it's mostly for brands. If I'm traveling, it's pretty much, I'd say 95% for a brand.
Hosting your own class, finding a venue, selling the tickets, catering the lunch. As you said that, I had a little bit of a visceral reaction because I've done that too. And it's a little more complex than people might think. Yeah. So let's say a salon reaches out to you, or are you reaching out to salons? And then what are the logistics of filling that space?
It varies. Yeah. How I do it is I reach out to a salon and I say, would you be open? Or they reach out to me and say, we'd love to host you. But I usually reach out to either way, we get in contact. And then I say, can I do my class here? I'm going to handle lunch. I'm going to handle all the snacks. Can you rent chairs? And I can pay for them. Just can you handle the logistics? It's too hard for me to do that from afar. And then depending on how big their team is or how many people would want to come, and you can have free tickets for your team, whatever, because they're doing me a favor. I'm not doing them the favor. They're opening their salon. I'm messing it up with a bunch of people. Somebody has to be there. Somebody has to clean. So I realized that I am fortunate enough they are doing me a favor. I know a lot of stylists don't operate like that. And some are there has to be a guarantee of I have to sell this many tickets. And if I don't, you have to pay me this amount of money and you have to provide rent. And no shade to that either. I mean, plenty of salons are happy to do that. And that's great for the educator. So there's a lot of options with that. The first class I taught, just because I didn't know anything, I split the profits with the salon owner, which I felt great about, and I still feel great about. I had no idea what I was doing. You got to start somewhere. But it's a lot. And yeah, finding a location where it's convenient to the airport in case anybody travels. And then, you have to be mindful of where do they park? It's so much more than just book that place, show up, teach the class, and leave. It's the whole thing. So that's why that's kind of taken a back seat. I'd rather have somebody else do all that for me and I just show up. Easier.
Our journeys have run in parallel more than I even realized. 2023 to 2024, we did something called the Thriving Stylist Tour.
I saw that.
Very similar to what you're talking about.
You must have been exhausted.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we did that thing, and I did it the exact same way that you did. As we reached out to salons that we wanted to work with, said, can you rent the chairs? Right. We'll take care of filling the space and covering some of those costs and all that kind of stuff. Right. Because it's incredibly intrusive on the salon to do that. And it's wonderful and it's exciting. We said, bring your team and all the stuff. But it is incredibly disruptive to a salon when you do that too.
Yes, 100%.
And we saw it the same way. For me, I was able to bring in just Thriving Stylist members. It was a members-only event.
That's really cool.
Even so, it's not easy to fill a space like that. I think we're looking for 50 or 60 people at each venue. It's
tough.
Harder than people realize.
Oh, my God.
I was talking to an educator recently who's committed to host an event in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And she was like, what is the best way for me to let people know I'm coming to this city to teach this class? Do you have any tips or strategies?
Yeah. I mean, I think for one, you got to post incessantly about it. That's something with any education or anything you're selling. I think people have this idea of I post on my stories once, people don't want to hear about it too much. And I'm like, the way social media works, my story views are awful. So even with 700 something thousand followers, like 5,000 people see my stories, maybe 10. And so that's such a small percentage. You got to keep posting about it every day, put it in your posts, have a ManyChat automation, like do all the things a lot of times. So there's that. And then, I mean, if you're just starting out, I really always say give some tickets out for free. Everybody's fear is just that nobody's going to buy tickets. It's going to be an empty room. And that is a very legitimate fear. But I do feel like you got to start somewhere, you know? And that's another thing that people just think, I'm going to start selling. And they book 5 classes. I'm like, book 1 class. What are you doing to yourself?
Right.
Book one that's local, that you know the salon. You don't have to travel and do all these logistics. And people just like to jump in all the way, which I respect that. But got to talk about it so much. That's my biggest advice. Like, drill it on social media every day until the class.
Such great advice. And when you're first starting off, talking about it consistently and making it free or very low cost, low barrier to entry.
That is one of the biggest things I see. People go in and it's a $500 class. It's like you've never taught a single thing.
Right.
And some people like don't even blink an eye at $500, but the educator has a little bit of like a reputation. Right. I would do it free or like $100.
Right.
Honestly.
Right.
Max.
Super accessible.
Yes.
Agreed. We're both working moms.
Yes.
How do you find that balance? Do you have, FOMO being away? When do you know when it's time to pull back? And how have you and your husband honestly navigated the logistics?
Yeah, I mean, balance is such a word that I haven't figured out. I call it kind of integration. And like, I am in different phases of my life and different stages. And before my kids were born and when they were really little and they didn't even know that I existed, they're like potatoes, I was like grinding. Like, I was actually traveling. Well, I didn't have that many opportunities back then, but I was really all in on work and everything. And then as they got a little older, I was like, okay, I want to take a step back because I actually like hanging out with them now. That the newborn baby phase was not for me.
Me either. I was the same.
My God, never again. Couldn't pay me enough to do that. But I kind of started taking a step back. And then I realized, I try and put these boundaries, like I'm turning my phone off at 5. And it's like, that's just not realistic. Like, my whole business takes place on my phone. I can't do that kind of stuff. So I just started the time that I do spend with my kids, like the quality time, I do try and at least, I mean, everybody's going to judge me for this, but my phone's always out, but I try and at least be the attention is like on them for a good portion of the time. With the travel, it is so hard. And I do always have guilt and FOMO. There's one side of me that's like, I want to show them that like, you can work hard and you can do whatever you want. And like, their mom is working, not to get into this thing of, and being a stay-at-home mom is a harder job than any job, in my opinion. So I want them to know that like you could have a great family and take care of your kids, and you could like chase your dreams, kind of a thing, So I do think that that has been really a delicate balance of being gone and taking on opportunities that are helpful and I enjoy, and also though not leaving them too much because they get sad and they're like emotional about it. But then it's that thing of when I'm not working, I feel guilty. And then when I'm not with them, I feel guilty. It's like there's no perfect way.
So I find myself conflicted. I love my kids more than anything in the whole world.
Yes.
There are times where I am like relaxing with my family where like work is calling, and it's an odd thought to have because that brings its own narrative and its own guilt and its own questioning. Do you get that sometimes too?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just like, but I want to deal with that because then otherwise it's just piling up the next day, or like that whole kind of thing. But I'm like, I also want to be present. Something I really struggle with is like when I'm on a vacation, the content posting, because unfortunately Instagram is such that like you can get in a really good rhythm and routine and you're just like building and it feels great and everything's going up and stats are improving. And then truly, if you take like 2 weeks off, it really affects. I hate that because I always want to say to people, take a break, like take time off. And you should. I mean, your mental health or any health is always more important than social media. However, just blowing it off for 2 weeks is just not realistic for me. because it does set you back. So that is the one thing that I really struggle with when I am trying to disconnect a bit, is like, well, I still got to do this content. Now, could I prep the content? 100%. Do I ever do that? 100% no. So there are ways around it, but then it's just, that's kind of a tough thing. But you're right. Like, work is kind of always calling. The beauty of this business is you can work whenever, but then it's a blessing and a curse, but then you can work whenever. So you like are working all the time. You don't leave anything at the door when you leave. So and my husband and I work together in BCU. So it's both of us are like on all the time to some extent.
I totally agree with you. And I think people go into digital education thinking they're going to get more flexibility, which you do.
Yes.
You get supreme flexibility.
Yes.
I will not argue against that. So
right.
true. But the ability to turn off goes away in a certain sense as well. And I think that's one of the unexpected side effects.
Yes.
Is
100%.
there is this urgency to always be on in some kind of capacity.
Yeah.
And
right.
when I look at the people who have found success, that is a common thread, is the drive, the commitment to always working hard for decades. It's a different level of commitment.
Yeah.
Do people in your personal life know what you do, and what do they think about it?
Kind of. And it's funny because I always joke when I tell people, like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, I'm a hairstylist, but I teach other hairstylists. And you know that social media trend that was like, oh, I own a clothing store or whatever. And then it's like a huge chain and it's like, holy fucking airball, basically.
Yes.
And I always, not that I'm that amazing, but I'm just picturing what people are thinking when I'm saying, oh, I like teach other hairstylists. Like, people that aren't in the industry are like, I have no clue what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
And they're probably just picturing me like someone standing next to me. I'm like doing my client. But I try to explain a little bit, but you can't really gather what that means if you don't do hair. Because you're like, people are like, well, don't they go to school? And I'm like, well, yeah, that's a whole nother thing. Yes, but it's not the same as outside of school education. So I kind of usually summarize it with like, I have a subscription-based platform and blah, blah, blah. But I would say majority of people are kind of like mystified. Like hairstylist is very, like, you know what that is, but beyond that, people don't really see many avenues to take this business. So,
right.
Yeah.
How long have you been working with a professional videographer for?
Probably from the start, but the reason that I should say, I mean, when I started BCU, I started using him. But before that, just posting educational content, never, obviously. But the only reason that happened was my 2 assistants ago, it's her boyfriend, essentially. So he was a photographer. He had a corporate job. He quit his corporate job to get into photography. So he was fairly new into it. And before I launched BCU, I made like a small tutorial video and really didn't do anything with it. I was just kind of dabbling. And he was like, I'll do it for free if you like, I don't know what I'm doing. He'd never done a video, only photo, like wedding photos, which is really not what he wanted to be doing. And so we did it together and we both had no idea. And probably filming hair is so much different than filming anything else. I mean, there are all these little angles and just everything that you need to get that's just not like setting up a tripod and filming, somebody standing there talking, whatever. So that was probably 2019. And after that, I tried to make some videos on my own. Like all 2020, I was doing them at home by myself. And we kind of didn't work together much. And then I started to film some of my own videos on my phone. Like, I learned that horizontal videos are probably great to dabble in as well. And then I'm like, this is too hard. And I'm editing them myself. So I reached out to him again and I was like, can we just film and you send me the raw footage and I will edit it? Because at that point, I'm not making that much money to where like, I can afford the whole start to finish. And that went on for probably 2 years. And then finally, I'm like, John, you have to just edit it. I'm dying. Like we'd film and then I would voice over the whole thing and edit it in Premiere Pro. And it was a nightmare, honestly. So finally, I committed to like, for real, I'm doing this probably like 3 years into BCU, I would say. Once I stopped taking clients, that was probably the tipping point of like, okay, I have to like go all in on this thing. Yeah.
I love that you and your videographer essentially grew up together.
We really did.
And thank you for sharing, like finding, all videographers are not made equal, and finding somebody who is able to shoot hair and shoot the close-ups that you need and understand the angles and have the equipment is half the battle.
Oh, 100%.
Can I jump into your finances on that for 1 second? Do you have a sense of how much you've invested in professional videography at this point?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I would say easily 20,000 over.
Yeah.
Probably closer to like 30 to 40 with like small projects, and like now he'll sometimes travel with me places.
Right.
Very big investment. But
huge investment.
Yeah. But it is one of those things. I mean, that's how I'm getting people the videos. So, you know, and I know now my sweet videographer, John, he has accidentally like become a hair videographer. Tons of people have worked with him, and he didn't really want to do that. And I'm like, sorry, you fell into it. So I know that he is kind enough to probably give me a little bit of a deal since we've worked together for so long. But it's still, I mean, you know, he probably should be paid more. It's so much work. So
much work.
So much work.
Let's talk about short form.
Yeah.
So you have filmed, I think you had almost 7,000 posts on your Instagram when I went to look.
Yeah.
You've made some content.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is video.
Yes.
When you are shooting for short form video, call it Instagram, call it somewhere on social media, is that being shot on your phone?
Yes.
What does your setup look like? How have you learned how to dial that in? Do you have content days? Like, can you give us a breakdown on that?
When I was behind the chair, I had no specific content days. I was filming my paying clients, but I was very cautious to not make it add a lot of time to their appointments. I did not want to make it this big thing where they felt like they had to come in and look like wear makeup, and I didn't want to make it a big production. So at that point, I did have an assistant, and they would help with filming. But a lot of times they would be with my other client. Like I was double booking clients, so I didn't have them all the time. So I kind of, and to be honest, I wasn't using a tripod that much. All these like tools and an Octo Buddy that can stuck on your mirror, like all this stuff sounds crazy, but it wasn't existing. I mean, a tripod, sure, but it wasn't as like prevalent as it is now. So I just kind of got creative. Like I'd pause and be like, oh, 1 sec, this is a really good picture. Because before Reels got popular, it was all photos and all static images. So I got good at stopping and taking a photo when I needed to. I would get some stuff from my assistant, but I know you say sometimes like you're scrappy. Like I just got scrappy, and I was like, I mean, I still use content, not exaggerating, from 2020. So I got scrappy with what I could get. Once my page evolved, I kind of started to realize what my audience really liked and was really focusing on that. So all of that is absolutely done on my iPhone. My videographer and I have kind of messed around with like some little like short form reels just for fun, a different style, but it's majority me doing that. And the setup has just evolved. I mean, it's one of those things where you just do what you can, and you have to figure it out from there. There's, you know, especially with clients, it's really hard, but if you want it to be your job, you got to treat it like one. So I kind of made it work.
I kind of love that. A lot of people say like, I'm going to start working out once I have the outfits and the dumbbells and the right membership. But the reality is you could just put on sneakers and go for a run. And that's kind of your approach that you took to filming the videos of like, maybe I don't have a tripod and the lighting's not perfect, but I'm just going to keep going until I get it right.
And I actually love, because there's been a lot of trends with that. For a while, it was like, have a completely plain background, do this, go outside, have a white sheet behind you, like whatever. And I was always just kind of like, look, my main job right now is taking clients, and I don't have the luxury of just taking one client a day and, you know, taking all this time to take photos. So I'm like shooting video, whatever, there's stuff in the background. I like it. Like, I feel like it feels much more organic. It's not this like rehearsed thing. You know, when ring lights were popular, obviously I was into that trend for a while, and then I kind of realized this is really misleading a bit, but no hate to anybody that uses them. I get it. And I've never really had like a setup. Obviously now when we film tutorials, it's lights and special cameras and whatever. But for any of my short form stuff, I really have never had like a setup. I just kind of work with what's there, because exactly like you said, it's very easy to get caught up in, oh, there's too much in the background, like blah, blah, blah. And then you never do anything. And then, you know, so it's a big barrier.
You got to make it easier. It's never going to happen.
Exactly.
When I talk to up and coming educators, one of their biggest concerns is free content versus protected content. Like I have big fear around sharing too much online. If I give it all away, no one's going to want to work with me.
Yep.
With 7,000 pieces of content, like you've taught us so much already. Do you have any like rules or guidelines around that? How do you decide what makes it into BCU versus what hits the feed?
Yeah, well, in one of your old podcasts, you said something that stuck with me, obviously, all these years later. And it was, you got to make the free stuff so good that they are just desperate to see what you have behind a paywall. And I'm like, you know what? Yes, because and I think this has lessened, but there was for a long time, it's like gatekeeping, quote unquote, that buzzword. And there was a lot of people I don't want to share my formula because it's a secret sauce and whatever, like no hate to them. Fine. I get it. And I looked at myself as a stylist and I'm like, I would never buy your course because I don't even know your style of education. Like if you don't even tell me a formula, I mean, how do you foil? I don't know. Just the after photos is not really doing it for me. To me, I mean, there is so much education to consume in this industry. It's insane. And I felt like, okay, if you can learn everything there is to know about hair from my 30-second reel, then honestly, good for you. Like then you don't need to invest. But that's unrealistic, So yes, a couple tips and tricks will be helpful, but none of those short form content pieces take you through a look from start to finish. I mean, they maybe do summarized in 1 minute, but that will never replace what a 45-minute video, like all the little nitty gritty that I can get into. And for me also, I'm like, you know what? Some people cannot afford to invest in education. And I do feel extremely strongly about the fact that education's like the Wild West now, and people are just out here with price points that a lot of people just simply can't afford. And I do feel passionate about the fact that there is a lot of free education. You can actually learn a lot from short little bits and pieces, but also nobody is going to want to invest way more into me and what I have to teach if I am not giving them a brief hint of what it's going to be like. So I've never really been into the whole, like, I'm going to keep this behind my paywall. And it's not really like, is this going to go in BCU or is this going to be free? It's more like, well, I can't fit this long video on my Instagram. So what pieces can I take that still might be really helpful, but also like you're going to want more because you're not really going to understand how to do the entire look, or you're not going to be able to understand how to do it on somebody outside of what I've shown you in this 1 minute clip. So it's never a battle of, do I share this or not? Because I want to keep stuff secret and make people pay for it. It's just what's consumable and digestible in such a short form.
And you and I align on that 110%.
Yeah, I know you're big on that. Yeah.
I never worry about what hits the podcast or hits my Instagram feed.
Right.
I know that the journey I can take somebody on through a coaching experience or a training experience can't be mimicked on Instagram or a podcast.
100%.
But if I share and we build trust, if and when the time is right, we'll work together and it'll be amazing when it happens. Let's talk about the Wild Wild West for a second.
Yes.
So you openly shared that 2023 was like the pinnacle of digital education for you. You had over 9,000 members at one time, which I have to be honest, I'm well networked in the digital education space. I don't know of anybody who can say that. Like it's incredibly impressive.
Thank you.
And you shared in 2025 that it was more of a low. 1 month was unexpectedly low.
Yeah, right.
Can we talk about how digital education has changed in the last, like you joined in 2019, 2020, the last like 5-6 years?
Yeah.
From your perspective, what has changed? How is the landscape different now?
Oh my God. For one, it's extremely crowded.
Right.
And I am not one of those people that, there's a lot going around right now. Like people are mad. Everybody's a coach. Everybody's an educator. And I'm like, good. I mean, everybody learns differently. Everybody has something different to share. Everybody teaches differently. I genuinely believe that there's room for all of us and a different space for everybody. I'm going to teach a highlight and my friend's going to teach a highlight and you're going to take something different from both of us. So while I don't hate it, it is extremely crowded and there are a lot of people doing the same thing. I mean, there's a million courses on how to build a business, how to do a foil, how to work efficiently. I mean, we're all kind of doing the same thing. That is the biggest shift, I would say. The other shift is I feel that people are a bit burned out on virtual education, if I can be honest. I think that back in 2020, people were so hungry for education because traveling was still very questionable. I would say from 2020 to 2022, people were nervous to travel. There was still that like, we had a pandemic, like this whole thing. So I would say it was accessible. People were watching it in their home. They didn't have to go anywhere. And I mean, most things were a bit more affordable then, you know? Some stuff still is, but it became harder and harder. When I launched BCU, it was like, I was like, this is too easy. Like, what is, and I kind of was like, this is going up. Like at some point, I'm going to see the other side of this. And it just became harder and harder and harder to get people to sign up. It also became so many credit card declines. I mean, which is sad, honestly. The state of the industry was so that at one point, I mean, BCU is $10, $18 a month. And these people are literally, you know, I email them when their credit card declines. And it's like, oh, can you wait till Friday? Like I'm getting paid on Friday. I'm like, friends, this is $18 a month. Like you need to go sign up for Thrivers. This is scary, you know? And I was truly like, if $18 a month is making or breaking you, then I don't think you need to have this membership. So stuff like that, just way more credit card declines. People were hopping around a lot more because there was other opportunities. And I used to be vigilant about, just obsessed with the number of people in BCU. I mean, every day, my husband and I like have had like a tracker, and it became so unhealthy that I was just living and dying by this number. And when it started to decline, I was kind of like, oh my God, what am I going to do? You know, it was such a shift, and I had to be open to pivoting because things were changing. And I think the biggest shift was, like I said, it got crowded, but I also think people became very burned out on not just virtual, but long form courses. Like you have to watch 6 videos to get to your transformation. And I just don't think people wanted that anymore. They wanted extremely quick results. Even navigating through a library of content was, some people will always love that, but most people were like, been there, done that. And that's not helping me anymore. So yeah, it's definitely, there was low points. And, you know, over 9,000 members. I was like, I got to get to 10,000. I was like so close. It was like 9,600. But that's still, I mean, thank you for your kind comments. Because I still considered it like, okay, this is pretty cool. I mean, it's like a milestone I can still have forever.
Huge accomplishment. I mean,
Thank
when
you.
I say I've never heard of anybody who's done that before, it's incredible.
Thank you.
I agree. Things have changed. You and I are both membership girlies. We're playing
Yes.
similar games from opposite sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
One of the things that people say to me is, you're so smart to do a membership because it's
Yes.
like money while you sleep, and it just kind of like happens. This
Oh,
could
yeah.
not be any further from money while we sleep as a business model. There's definite pros to it. It's more complex, I think, in the back end that people realize. Can you tell us about kind of like the administrative back end part of your business? Like we see you show up, you shoot a video, you upload it online, and the cash flows in. Like that's how it feels.
Right.
What does your average work week look like? What does some of the admin work that happens on the back end? And do you do it all yourself, or do you have support?
You are so right. A member, and I get that all the time too. Like, I'm never educated, but I want to do a membership. And I'm like, ma'am, sir, please, I beg you, don't do that to yourself. The thing people don't realize is, sure, it's income coming in, but it's the same amount of work if you have 5 members or 5,000 members. And people make these big promises, 1 video a week, I'm going to do all this stuff, I'm going to be available for whatever. And you have to show up and do that 1 video if you have 5 members. Like, it does not matter. I always advise people, you know, try a one-off course or try an ebook or something like that. Do not pressure yourself to go all in on a subscription when, oh my God, it's just so much work. It's constant, really. And I don't think people realize that. And, you know, I got really lucky, but I don't think that's always the case. And I think it's just absolutely, oh my God, it's just way more work than people think.
When you're not filming videos and doing models for BCU, what other work is going on in the back end of your business?
Yeah. You know, it's prepping the stuff for BCU. It's getting the captions together, making the head sheets, like all the stuff that actually goes into, you know, I don't just post the video. There's a lot of stuff to that. It's obviously working on other offers that I have, courses. Now I'm launching like some ebook kind of things. It's making social media content is honestly a huge part of every day for me. And it takes a lot of time. So that, and I would say just like brand relationships, just dealing with planning for trips and those kind of things, and making content for brands, which also is a bit more time consuming because it's usually so specific. So gosh, there's any array of things, but I would say, responding to BCU members because they get to DM me, and that's a whole thing. So, oh my gosh, just it's so many things, truly, which people don't think that, but it really is.
You have ebooks and smaller programs beyond the BCU. How does that strategy all come together? How do you decide, this really needs to be its own standalone resource, this should be an ebook versus just putting it all in BCU and just adding on?
Yeah, it's a great question because I didn't know at first, and everything just went in BCU at first. And then I kind of realized, okay, people are really struggling with like, where do I start if I don't know how to foil at all? And then I was like, okay, I'm going to make a course only about that. Same thing with extensions. Like, people were like, how do I get into extensions? And it's a lot more than just like watch this video. So I kind of started to see what questions people were asking and make that into more of like, a specific course or whatever. And then same thing with the ebooks. People were just really interested in placements and they wanted to know just the placement. They didn't want to watch the whole course. And I said, okay, well, this seems like something that would be helpful for people. So I kind of created this ebook with placements. So it's really just what I organically find that people are questioning and need more help with. And then I kind of make that its own thing. But everything's an experiment. I'm really learning as I go and figuring out how to, like what courses do well and why, and how can I expand on that kind of a thing.
With digital education, one of the things I mention to people if they're just getting started is there's like different phases of filling a course, a program, a membership, whatever. And the first phase is the low-hanging fruit, the people who are already there, ready and waiting for you to open something like a BCU. That was your first 700, locked them in, easy. Then there's the people who are kind of like right on the edge, and then they come in a wave. Yeah. And then you get to the place you and I are at right now, where it's like constantly putting yourself out there, constantly building more trust with new people or deepening connections with people. I have people who don't work with me for 6-7 years. They've been following me until we get to that right place.
Right.
One of the things that you do to build what I call awareness around your programs is you do run paid ads.
Yes.
I do as well.
100%.
Can you tell us what your ad strategy looks like, how you're creating those advertisements? Are you running them all the time? Do you just do it sometimes? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. I didn't run ads for probably 3 years. And like I said, it was just very organic growth. And I was fortunate enough, like you said, there's lot of low-hanging fruit at that point. I started then when it's kind of started to be like, oh, it's harder to get members. I started running ads and no idea what I was doing. I pay a company to do that for me because for anybody that has not dealt with meta ads, it is wildly overwhelming for me who has no idea about that stuff. So I hired a company and I've actually bounced around to 3 different companies. And now I am back with the original company that I worked with because they're just the best. And, I thought the grass was greener, but it's not. So it helps a lot, but I do find that it helps with specific things more so than others. Like a one-off $48 guide sells incredibly well on ads, whereas the membership, it is still hard to get people to sign up for that. Same with a more expensive course. Ads were great for, and I put a lot of the ad budget into that specific like $48 PDF guide. So that's probably why too. But I have done different ad spend all throughout this whole journey and tried to figure out what works. It's been great, but you do have to spend a lot of money to see return, in my opinion. So it's great, but it's expensive. So I don't think it's a great option if you're not making a lot of money. Honestly, I don't know that you'd see the return that you want, but it has been really helpful.
I completely agree. Ads is something that you graduate into.
Yes.
When you're running ads, are you running Google, Meta ads, Instagram ads? Where are you putting the ad traffic?
Mostly Meta, like Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah.
I've dabbled with everything, but that seems to be the biggest return is the Meta ads universe, which is the whole thing.
Do you have a sense of how much you've invested in ads over time?
Right now, for anybody that doesn't know, just to work with an ads company, you're usually at $3,000 minimum just to even like have them work with you. And then I spend $7,000 to $10,000 in ads, just in ad spend a month. Sometimes like if I'm doing a sale, I go to like $13,000. So now I've been doing ads for 3 years. So what's that? At least, $300,000 probably, at least. Is that the math? Is that right?
That sounds about right. Yep. And thank you for sharing that really openly.
Yeah.
I was just in a room recently and people were asking me, and they're like, do you spend like $1,000 to $2,000 a month on ads? And I was like, oh, I wish.
I wish.
And I was very transparent too, but I think it's important for people to know and understand that.
Yeah.
Because it is something you graduate into. You and I both would rather do it another way. Like, it's not ideal.
100%.
But you do get to a point where that is the only way to continue to build and grow. But I would never advise anybody to spend even a dime on ads until you've built an organic following. People are naturally coming to you asking for advice and are investing in your programs. You have honed in your teaching skills and you know how to effectively teach online, which really is its own skill set. Learning to teach in person is one thing. It's really hard. And then learning to teach through a computer screen is 100%. Another advanced skill set.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have any audience interaction. You're just like talking to yourself and a camera. It's very awkward, but yeah, you're so right. And I say the same thing. Like, the other thing about ads is not only does it hopefully sell your program, but it's like, for me at this point, my following on Instagram is fairly big, so it helps me to grab new people. But I think when you don't have much of a following, you can easily do that with organic content, you know? So I'm with you. Like, that is not the first step to take, because it is very, it's expensive.
So you have a real knack for creating content that is educational. I feel authentically connected to you.
Thank you.
But not in like an overexposure way.
Yeah.
And I mean this in the kindest, most loving way. You know how some people, it almost feels like they leverage their family or they leverage their kids for views. I've never watched you do that, yet you're still able to show up really authentically as yourself and give us a sense of who you are so we can get that trust. Do you have like content pillars? Are you trying to make sure you feature certain things? Like, how much are you thinking through what your content strategy looks like? And is there anywhere you turn for inspiration?
Gosh. Well, the type A girlies and boys are going to hate that I am so type B with content. I do not plan anything, despite having tried so many times. Okay, these are my pillars. This is the app I'm using. This is how I'm planning. This is how I'm batching content. It just is not the way my brain works. I am literally making content and posting it immediately, which no social media person recommends that. I know that it is probably not nearly the most efficient way, but that is what works for me, and that's kind of how my brain works. And I don't necessarily have pillars, but I do, or I'm not like, okay, this post has to sell to this. A lot of it, I try to just not be as salesy as I was maybe 3 years ago. That was, every post had a CTA that was very clear, buy this. And I don't do that much anymore because I want things to feel authentic, and I don't always want to feel like people are getting sold to. But to your point of leveraging family and stuff, which I totally agree. I have tried to, especially with my kids, I post them occasionally. They're very young, and I don't want that decision to be made for them. They're not old enough to say, hey, I want to be on the internet. And no shame to anybody that does that. I totally get it. And I just feel like this is my business. It's not even a personal page. I mean, it is because it's me, but it's not like, it's focused on my business. So I try and keep it authentic as far as that goes and be myself. But I do want to be clear on the fact that, I am selling something, but I still want to help you guys out with free stuff too. So I wish I had a clearer guideline of like, here's what I think of posting, and here, like, it's just a mess in my brain, and I just like don't even know what I'm doing. So
I've made my own assessment of your social media strategy with no context. It's fully made up in my mind and could be fake. I think that you create content at such a scale that you're able to take risk. Like, if you make a post and it bombs, it doesn't matter because you have another one coming tomorrow that's going to be something totally different. Yes. And because you are so actively playing and so actively creating, and you're willing to take those risks and put it out there and see what hits.
Right.
You don't have to be so type A with it. And I actually think you did speak to a huge portion of our industry is more like type B, where it's like they do want it to feel more natural. They want to shoot a piece of content when they're in the mood and when it feels right and they like what's going on. That can be done. I think the difference being you have to shoot at scale because you're going to have some misses, but you're also going to have some big hits, and you have to be willing to kind of play the game from that angle.
100%. And I totally agree with you. And I actually did... Why do I do these things to myself? But I did like a challenge a couple years ago with myself where I was like, I'm going to post 5 times a day. And it was exhausting, but it was that thing of like, oh, well, if a post sucks, who cares? Because it's just going to be filtered out by the other stuff. So yes, that is extremely true. And sometimes I don't even realize that that's a perk. But if you're only posting 4 times a week, they have to be quality posts and really have to hit if you're trying to grow from that. So you're exactly right with kind of my strategy, for sure.
You've completely relieved the pressure.
Yes.
There's always a second chance coming up next.
Exactly.
Okay, I want to talk about something tricky. So I came across a post that was accusing you
Yes.
of blocking people if they canceled BCU.
Yes.
Which seems so out of character and hard for me to believe.
Right.
But I want to understand from you, what is the context of that storyline?
100%. So I've seen that post. I am like, me and my husband is like, he's very petty. Like, he takes obviously BCU as seriously as I do. We work together on it. So he's constantly scouring like my hashtag and Reddit. Reddit is like, God, Reddit's scary out there.
That's another wild, wild west.
Oh my God. So we came across this post and it was somebody that said, yeah, I canceled BCU and then I got blocked. So to be clear, that is not my strategy. Like blocking somebody once they cancel. I mean, I would have no business. Like with over like, at some point you've coached thousands of people, tens of thousands. And so like that would just not be a strategy. And also I designed BCU so you could come and go. Like there's no minimum commitment. There used to be when I started it because it was $10 a month. Now there's no minimum commitment. And I don't encourage people to stay longer than they feel they need to. However, if you are disrespectful, 100% like, sorry, I am going to block you. But with this particular person, and I actually went back and looked them up because I was like, what is this about? So when you have a subscription or really any kind of, it's not as big where you have one purchase and then you're done paying. When you have a subscription, people agree to pay you monthly, of course. And I make that extremely clear. You have to check a box acknowledging you will be charged monthly until you cancel before you can check out. Now, what people don't realize is some people truly don't know, but they dispute the charge with their bank, okay? And a lot of people do that because they're like, I don't know how to cancel. Let me just call the bank. A lot of people do it because for what, I mean, they don't want to email to you. They're embarrassed, whatever. They don't have the money, fine. And when you dispute a charge, it not only you have to defend your business and that costs money to even get a word in and say, hey, I am a legitimate business. And the other thing is that it doesn't look great for a payment processor when you have all these disputes. Now with like, thousands of members, it's bound to happen. Again, a lot of people don't know, and I reach out to them because whenever this happens, I reach out and I'm like, hey, I see you disputed the charge. Like, is there something I can help you with? What happened? A lot of the time the people are like, oh, I just like didn't know how to cancel. And I'm like, if you can reverse the dispute, great, but whatever. Fine. And most people are very kind about it. This particular person, I reached out and not a lot of times, but sometimes it goes to like, I didn't sign it for every month. Like I don't use it, so I don't want to be charged for it. Like you're a scam, basically. And if there's any words about that, I'm like, goodbye. Like I'm so protective of the energy on my page because my content takes me so long to create. And I'm like, same thing with anybody that says something negative in the comments. I'm like, bye, I don't need you. So it's that whole thing of, no, I absolutely do not block people just for canceling BCU. But if you're going to call me like a scam artist or say that I didn't mention that it's a subscription or be mad that I held up my end of the bargain. Like I gave you the content that I was promising. And for people to just say, well, no, like I should get my money back because I haven't opened it in a year. It's like, well, that's not really my problem. Like that's on you. I've still been posting and I've still been doing it. So it's more that like, and it's also kind of like, you're not welcome back at this point if you are going to make those accusatory statements about me. And I don't feel bad about that, to be honest. Like a lot of people do come back to BCU. So of course I don't want to make it a practice of like blocking people, but yes, and that is something that I was extremely unprepared for, was just, I think it's less if you have a one purchase thing, but with a subscription, my goodness, people get crazy and then it's the whole thing and they think they shouldn't be charged and they didn't know it was a subscription. And I'm like, there's just no way. I mean, I mentioned it so many times. So that is a bit of backstory on that. So hopefully that helps clarify.
It does help clarify. Thank you for giving context. You and I both made the choice to really put ourselves out there online.
Yes.
It was a risk that we both chose to make. We built the businesses we built. But I think I'm going to guess you and I have the same approach. So now my Instagram page is like my home. And if you're going to disrespect me in my home, then we have a problem. I wouldn't allow somebody to talk to me that way in my living room.
Yeah.
So we're probably not going to talk that way in my comments either. And I understand that's not something everybody can even conceptualize because they haven't experienced it before. But sometimes we've navigated some really dark conversations, and it just changes the way you're willing to walk into
100%
some of these situations.
Oh, absolutely.
The other thing you touched on that I think is important is there's legalities around digital businesses and memberships specifically.
Yes.
That you and I don't have a choice on.
Exactly.
In order to operate, I've had to consult attorneys many, many times to understand what we're even able to do.
Totally.
And I think that can be a misunderstanding as well.
Yeah.
Have you ever had any fear around being canceled, or have you ever gotten caught up in the things that people do say about you online that are less than savory? Because you and I both have haters. That's a part of the game 100%. Also.
Yeah.
How has that impacted you, and or how have you created like an emotional boundary so it doesn't penetrate?
Yes, great question. And I am always afraid of being canceled. Honestly, it's such a heated environment now, especially, my God, I mean, just people's opinions, but then you add politics, and you add, there's a million things, and somebody's doing this in the industry and you're supporting them, and somebody's doing, there's like scandals in the industry and you got to pick a side. And it's a very delicate balance of voicing your opinion and saying what you feel and saying too much and getting canceled and offending people. So I always worry about it, honestly. And I've just learned I just don't even, and people will judge me for this, but I'm like, I just don't even comment on it now. And, then I get comments like, you're not using your platform, and people are just go off. Like, I posted something the other day about my backyard renovation, and someone's like, what about the Epstein files? I was like, sir, I'm talking about my tile in my yard. Like, I get it, but it's also not everything becomes like I have to be an activist for everything, So people judge that too. You didn't say enough. You said too much. At this point, though, I've really put a boundary up for, like I said, I cancel anybody that is negative in my comments or has any negative DMs or anything like that. Otherwise, I'm just kind of like, the ones where people attack my character, if someone's like, oh, that blonde is so ugly, I'm more like, okay, whatever, good for you. But it's the ones, like I said, where this particular person like attack me as a person and my character. Those are the ones that kind of stick with me. And I'm like, I'm not a scam artist. Like, I feel like I have a lot of free education. Like, you can't say that I'm ripping anybody off there. I mean, you could join BC for $27. Like, that to me is not ripping people off. So it's just, I really have had to just get okay with not everybody liking me. And that is a really hard thing. And I struggle with that in taking clients too. I mean, that's just hard to come to terms with. So it is what it is, but there's always, like you said, there's always going to be that certain level of haters when you put yourself out there. That is unavoidable. And the other thing people ask me all the time is, well, aren't you going to be nervous that someone's going to like question when you say something about education, I do it this way, or this color does this? Are people going to question you and say like, you're wrong? And I'm like, oh, of course they're going to question. People love to do that. And even sometimes people come to my in-person classes and they're like, trying to teach me. I'm like, ma'am, what are you doing here? You just wasted money to come and like one up me. I don't know. It's weird. Same thing with people being mad at you. Like, it's going to happen, but you can't let that be the reason you don't do it, because there'll be so many other great things to come out of it. So
thank you for normalizing all of that.
Yeah.
You shared at the very end of 2025 an Instagram post that like really, it's probably my favorite piece of content you've ever posted. It resonated really deeply with me, and I think with a lot of other people who saw it as well. And the context was, Instagram shows one side of anything, whatever we choose to give the world.
Yes.
And then there's the reality of what's happening kind of behind the walls.
Yeah.
And you shared the highs and the lows.
Yes.
And you had some really high highs, like some really incredible things that happened.
Yeah.
And then some real low lows.
Yes.
And for me, I felt very seen in that moment. I was like, well, damn, if this is not the truth. It was huge. Can we go through some of those things together?
Yeah.
Tell me about, you had, I think you said a seizure that really set you back. What happened there?
Yeah. So I have been dealing with this since I was 16. It's never something I talked about. And had a seizure first day of junior year of high school. So talk about just like bad first days of school. It was so great. I loved it for me. And tons of tests, whatever. Nothing had a concrete like answer. And still really don't after millions of tests. So that happened. I mean, for obviously now it's been like 20 years I've dealt with it, but it was more consistent when I was 16 to probably 28. Be like every once a year, every 6 months, like this would happen. And obviously like just hugely disruptive to my life. That's not like a small thing. And then there was kind of a break. Like nothing happened for 8 years, 9 years, whatever. And then in 2024, out of nowhere, I had a seizure. Like hadn't had one in years, and it just totally threw me off. And I was like, okay, well, that brought up so much stuff that I had basically just kind of been like pushing down for a lot of years because it's super traumatic. It's just a whole thing. It makes you feel like physically not good. And so I was like, well, I don't want to, I went to a neurologist, blah, blah, everything's the same, nothing's wrong that they can pinpoint. So I was like, I kind of want to just see if that's a one-off thing. It hasn't happened in so long. There was a lot of stressful stuff going on. Like my kids were going through some stuff. And then it happened again, like 10 months later. And I was like, okay, I need to like get control of this because this just feels debilitating and it feels like it's taking over my life. So I found a new neurologist, started taking medication. I hadn't tried medication for epilepsy since I was 16. And at that point, it's come a long way, but it was very much, it just made me feel like a zombie. I just didn't love it. And I tried new medication and that's been great. And then, it was such a low point for my mental health. I mean, anytime you have like a chronic illness and something like that, where it's such a disruptive event, it adds just a whole nother layer. And like, you're constantly like, is this going to happen when I'm somewhere? And, especially like the stuff that I'm doing, is going to happen when I'm at an event. Is this going to, like, it's a whole thing. And it just like sent me spiraling. And there's always been, I mean, I think everybody has kind of ups and downs with mental health a bit. But I was just at such a low point. And honestly, drugs was the answer, not like bad drugs, but like and medication for anxiety. And there's just a lot of like negativity around that. And it's like, you could do all the things. You can meditate, you can exercise, you can get good sleep, you can blah, blah, but sometimes that's just not enough. So I've talked about that a lot and how like it really got me out of a very dark time where I was kind of like, what am I going to do with my life? Because I'm also looking at like, what lesson is this trying to teach me? And obviously it's like scale back, work less, blah, blah. But sometimes it's just, I can't like quit my job.
Right.
So it was trying to figure out how can I still feel good, but I still have to make money. I mean, and still enjoy it. So yeah, it's been a journey, but that was over a year ago. So far, so good. I did some other stuff. I started doing the keto diet, which is like very connected to treating epilepsy. So we'll see. I mean, it's been a journey, but it's nothing I haven't dealt with for a long time. It just had been a break from it. So I'm like, oh, cool. Like, done with this. But, it gives me a lot of perspective. You just never know what people are dealing with or going through. And there is just a lot that you don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
I went through a low that I didn't realize I was in a couple of years ago and just came out the flip side about a year back. But it was odd to be in it because I couldn't see it.
Yes.
And then when you're on the outside, you're like, whoa, that was
bad.
Wild that was my reality.
Totally.
It's interesting to be on the other side.
Yeah.
How did you continue to show up? Like, had you not said anything, nobody would have any idea that you were feeling anxious or going through a hard time.
Yeah.
How did you push through and continue to show up?
Yeah. I tried to be a lot more authentic. Like then I started talking about it like, hey, this sucks. And it's one of those things where once you say that, then the outpouring of like, oh my God, this happened to me or my sister or whatever. And people are so supportive and great, of course. But I did want to open up too because there was a couple in-person classes I had planned that year. And I was like, I canceled them because I was just like, I'm really sorry. Like I'm not in a place to do any of this. So I wanted to be vulnerable about that too because I never wanted to come off as like, I just cancel my classes. Like I just don't care. I mean, it took a lot for me to do that. And I don't know. I mean, part of me is probably this is like the toxic part of me. I was like, I can't stop because again, if I take 6 months off of social media, like it is such a journey to get back there. And sometimes it felt like a bit of like a release to be able to talk about it. Like it was pretty freeing. I mean, I just did what I could with like how I felt at the moment, you know? I gave myself a little bit of less pressure as far as how much I needed to show up and reusing a ton of content and that kind of a thing. So just like did what felt okay without totally overextending myself.
I really appreciate you sharing that. I don't think you ever took your foot off the gas. That's
Yeah.
not what it looked like, but it was almost like you changed the direction that the car was driving and you rethought the roadmap and you were like, okay, we're still on this journey. However, we're not going to fly 90 down the freeway. We're going to take back roads and we're going to do things differently so that I can feel good about everything that we're doing. And
exactly.
It makes it feel worth it.
Right.
Versus grinding it out.
Yes. 100%.
Hoping it would get better.
Yeah. And right. And I changed a lot of big things in my life. I think in that post too, I mentioned that we moved.
Yeah, tell us about
sold
that.
our house. Yeah. So 28 or gosh, when did we move in there? 2022, we moved into a house that was like quote unquote dream house. And that was one of those things where I was like, oh, I made it. You know, we were talking about that earlier. And it was a huge house, had like an acre of land. It had a huge pool that we built the whole yard, like blah, blah. And while it wasn't living outside of our means, like it was actually a small, the mortgage was like a small enough portion of our income. It was a really high mortgage. And it just felt, and just to maintain like all that property and do all the stuff, it just was like a lot. I still had to work really hard for that. And so that was the whole thing when I was dealing with that health stuff, that was coming up a lot. And, you know, my husband deals with all the finances, all the cancellations, all the credit card declines and stuff. So he is super like not overanalyzing, but analyzing. He knows every bit of like financial situation with our business. And he tends to be like more panicked about that, whereas I'm like, I'll figure it out. Like, we'll make more money some other way. So we started throwing around the idea of like, should we move? Because this is just huge. My mom lives with us. And so it was also just this thing of, it's not the best setup for her, despite it being a big house. There was not enough privacy. And just started really reassessing what was actually important to me and thinking, okay, I have this huge house, but I feel like I can't say no to any of the things I want to say no to. I still feel this pressure of I have to take on every project, do everything. And we moved to a house that's a bit smaller, but it has a separate, like full separate area for my mom. It's so much better in that sense. And where I lived before, there was no sense of community. The houses were very spread apart. You didn't really know your neighbors. There weren't a lot of young kids. So we moved to a place where we live on a cul-de-sac and there's kids the same age as my kids next door. It's very much more a community, which I love. And it just is such a better fit. And fortunately, we were able to sell our previous house and basically have no mortgage for this new house.
Wow.
So it kind of, that actually I have to say that was a big moment where I was like, whoa, like that felt big to me because I'm like, I know this is not the norm, but it was a moment of stepping back and being like, I tried this big house. And was it more about my ego that like, hey, I have a huge house, or like, I don't really care about that, you know? And I had to just reassess, wait, why are we doing this? We don't need that much space. We have 2 kids, not like 20. So it felt like the right choice. But it was one of those things where I cried about it. I was sad about it. But then ultimately it was absolutely the best choice. And, you know, going back to just the quote unquote balance, like there is never any, but I'd like to have a season where I'm not just like pushing myself so hard that it's affecting my health. So that was kind of that choice. But yeah, it felt like a low for sure in that year. So it goes up and down always.
I like the way that you renegotiated the terms of success and what this is all about. And you said, we can still have a big, beautiful life, but I'm not going to run the marathon anymore.
Yes, exactly.
Does your husband work outside of VCU?
No.
Oh, tell us about what that shift looked like. When did that happen?
Yeah, so he probably 2022. He's worked in real estate for like 20 years. He's done sales, but he mostly did property management of residential and commercial buildings, which is a very negative field. Like a property manager, you're either getting complaints from the tenants or the owners are like, I don't want to spend any money on that kind of a thing. Like it's not a lot of happy, peppy emails, right? So, but he was making great money. Like it was, you know, it was fine. And eventually I got to a point where I said, okay, I'm either going to have to hire somebody to do the admin stuff, or can you do this? And it was a battle. I think a lot of it was just he didn't want to give up his whole work, you know? And so finally he did. He quit. And he then started working with me full time. We're like, this is a risk, of course. I was still doing hair, so at least we had that to fall back on. BC was growing. And yeah, now he just works full time with me. And he's like we literally have a desk. We sit right next to each other on our little computers. And so yeah, which I never thought that would happen. And we spend a lot of time together, but it's good. We've made it work. And he brings to the table the stuff that I don't bring to the table, like a spreadsheet. Literally, when I started BCU, I'm like writing down people's amount they paid and then trying to go back like when their credit card, like it was a mess. And he's like, do you know how to make a spreadsheet? I was like, no, I don't know how to make a spreadsheet. Like, what are you talking about? So it's a good like mix of our two strengths.
I appreciate you talking about the fact that his skill set makes up for your gap.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of people are like, well, my dream is that my spouse comes into the business, or we want to do this in partnership. You're a prime example of what that can look like so successfully.
Yeah.
If the person is just doing it so that they can travel with you or they don't have to work, maybe they should do that and maybe not come into the business, because unless it really is a natural fit or there's a gap fill, I've seen that fail a lot of times because there's tension over the vision or challenges with the dynamic, but you all have figured out a way to make it work really well.
Yeah. I mean, we're still learning, of course, and it's hard to work with your spouse, live with your spouse, obviously. I mean, I think anybody would struggle with that here and there, but luckily he really, like, I'm the creative side of it 100%, and he wants nothing to do with that. And he's very much like, he'll do stuff like have calls with the ads team, and he'll deal with when we're launching a course, like setting up the whole back end of the website and stuff. So he is, we've kind of found the way to work together without having a ton of tension. We still disagree on stuff, obviously, and but it's, we've sort of figured it out.
So one of the things that I have heard people talk about is you travel with an amazing group of friends. Like there was you, Devin, and Carlos were like this trio, and we're all like, can we please come to dinner with you? Like it was like this magical crew. And like, I know you're friends with Drea, and you have really connected with some of like the brightest, purest, like truly best souls in the industry. How have you made those connections?
Yeah, I like to think that, because, there's a lot of negative buzz about like influencers, quote unquote, or like people with the following on Instagram. And there are those people that I'm like, I can never be friends with you, whether that be just their whole vibe or their ego or whatever. But I think I have been fortunate enough to, when I find somebody that we can really connect and like be vulnerable and be honest with each other, and it's not like a contest of you're doing this and I'm doing that, like truly support each other. I like hang on to that, So, and I have been extremely fortunate enough to be in rooms with other people that we're all kind of doing the same thing. But it helps so much. I mean, when you have other people that support you and that don't, judge you for trying to launch a course or to do whatever, I mean, that's very draining. So I just feel I've been lucky to kind of overlap with these people, whether it be, Carlos used to work with Schwarzkopf, and then he knew Devin from something they did together, and we all kind of came together, which I am obsessed with both of them so much. It just, you like click with people and then you kind of hang on to them.
Yeah.
And it's unique because you don't see these people that often,
right,
a lot of the time.
Right.
Like you maybe see each other at a hair show or whatever, which is, it's fun. Like that's part of the fun of it. So,
right.
Yeah.
What I think people see and want is they look at you, Carlos, and Devin. Let's use the trio for an example.
Right.
And you all are aspirational and so accomplished. And so it's like, if I could get into that room. What I have found is like for you, they're your peers. Like you're hanging out with your peers, and that's why it feels so good. And that's why it looks so amazing.
Yeah.
Any stylist or salon owner watching this can have that magic.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll find it in their own community. It's the other
100%.
Salon owners fighting the same battle that you are, the other stylists building up within your specialty, like go to classes, go to events, like network and connect.
Yeah.
It's that relationship, and to what you said, the people you can talk to and be vulnerable with.
Yes.
That's the magic.
So important.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I can be vulnerable with my husband or whatever, but like he doesn't necessarily get the same he doesn't have it from the same perspective, really. He sees me doing what I'm doing, but there are other things that we can all learn from each other.
Right.
And you just have to have that. It's just hugely helpful. And I've come across a lot of people and we're kind of doing the same thing, but they're so obsessed with like they're here and like nobody else is there kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And that's cool. Like luckily I have no beef specifically with anybody in the industry,
Really?
but you just find those people that exactly your peers that support you. Nothing can replace that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you and Carlos met at a Schwarzkopf event. How long have you been working with Schwarzkopf?
Since about 2017 was the first time I worked with them.
Wow.
So it's been a while.
What did the early working partnership look like?
Yeah, so a million years ago, they might still do this, I'm not sure, but Behind the Chair used to send out boxes of product to people that were like trying to kind of get into that space of brand partnerships. And they sent me a box from Schwarzkopf, and I was like, okay, cool, I'll try it. And had never used it before in my life. And I liked it enough. I mean, it was, I was using a bunch of stuff at that time. They invited me to come to this, they were doing a campaign shoot for a color launch. And they sent me an email that literally was like, we'll pay you. And not we'll pay you. It was something like the wordage was, and the cost or whatever is $1,000 or some sort of money exchange is $1,000. And I was like, wrote back literally like, do you mean you're paying me or like, am I paying you? I was so just like, what do you mean? Never had anything like that happen before. And so I went, of course, and they're based in Culver City. So they have this like beautiful, like huge building that overlooks like LA. It's incredible. And this huge like salon kind of area. And it was literally, we were doing the models for the people that were going to be, for the images that were going to like launch this new color brand. I was like, what is going on here? Like, I've never experienced anything like this. And that was my first intro into, oh, this is like a whole nother world that I don't know anything about. So that happened probably 2017, 2018. And then we kind of did some small stuff, like dabbled with that. And then, gosh, probably 2022 or something, I had like a more permanent contract with them, like year-long kind of specifics of what I was going to do versus a shorter contract. So I've been working with them ever since. I love them. I am obsessed with them. They're just phenomenal people, and I genuinely love the product. And from there, I kind of started using it more and obviously learning it. So I love them. They're amazing, and they've been great to me. So it's a great partnership. I'm very fortunate for that.
Something that you share with me that really piqued my interest is, by chance, last week, I was sitting around a table with 8 or so multi-7-figure salon owners. This is like a powerful room of people.
Yeah.
And they were talking about how they feel like the way that they are being cared for by their color or hair care companies has changed over the years.
Yeah.
And by the way, everything changes. This is life.
Course.
I totally understand.
Of course.
There were a few benefits you were talking about. I was like, that's really interesting, because I was just in this room hearing that other brands are pulling back in ways that it sounds like Schwarzkopf is leaning in.
Yeah.
And when I was asking you, I said, well, in your career, you're probably at the place where you're like way beyond going to teach a class in salon for a brand. And you were like, well, actually, no. Like, they are allowing, their bigger accounts or their salons that have earned it to bring in somebody like you.
Yeah.
And I know you're very humble, but when I talk to stylists and I ask them, how come you're not going to the classes that your salon owner is hosting and bringing in educators for? And they tell me over and over and over, I don't want to see somebody that I've never heard of before teach a cutting class.
Yeah.
I want to see a Carly. I want to see somebody I admire. I'm looking for the inspiration and the education and all the things.
Right.
I want to see somebody that's on my vision board.
Right.
And I think it's really incredible that they're making that possible for salons to achieve.
Yeah. It's very cool. And actually, that was the last 2 years, that was a majority of my travel. I mean, I did a lot of those. They call them like key account classes.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of that. And it is really cool because that's what I love about Schwarzkopf too. I was kind of mentioning to you that I genuinely feel that they have the hairdresser's best interest at heart. Mm-hmm. And they do really try and support the salons that work with them. And they do place a lot of importance on those relationships. And I find it flattering when they're like, we want you to come out and teach at this salon, or we just have this big account that is signed on with us. Like, can you come and teach them a bit about Schwarzkopf and show them how you use it? So that is always very cool. And I do think they are leagues ahead in that. And their sales reps, I guess that would be like for their different regions are super dedicated. I mean, that these people work so hard. These reps work just insanely hard. I had no idea about this side of the job. Of course, like, what do I know? I'm just doing clients. And they're driving all over the place. They're having these events, having lunch, and it's very cool. And they're also kind of trying to expand into the community, more like small-ish events, like 300 people with a lot of inspiration that is not just hair technique. And I love what they're doing with this because it doesn't feel like, hey, buy our product. Right. It's more like, this is what we're about. And if you feel this vibe and you like it, like, hey, come and hang out with us. But it's not like you have to sign on. And same thing they're doing. So those are bigger like lift events. And then they're calling them community connect events where it's smaller. It's like 100 people or less. The ticket prices are very inexpensive. It's like $100, which to me, that's like, you can't find anything for $100. That's in person.
Right.
And they try and make them like cool. They're just fun events. So I think they are really trying to expand with that. And they're really pushing community right now. That's kind of, because that's really the only way we're going to survive in this industry, is if you have a community and like your tribe of people that will help you and you can relate to them. And they've said they've had a really good like conversion rate for people that come and are like, oh, wait, I want to try this. Mm-hmm. So that's been cool to be a part of that for sure. And I love seeing the growth of that because it's just cool. I mean, it feels unfortunate to work with them.
How many brand partnerships do you think you've had over the years?
Probably 20 at least. Yeah. I mean, some of them have been very small, like one-off things, but I have been fortunate enough to work with quite a few brands.
And do brands reach out to you? Do you reach out to them? What does that look like?
It varies. I would say it's gone both ways. I've pitched myself to many brands, and sometimes they don't care and sometimes they do. And brands have reached out to me as well. And that looks like, sometimes, a lot of times they contact me in my DMs, or I don't have an agent or anything, so it's me or it's nobody, like they will DM, they will email, but it really goes both ways, to be honest. And I, for a long time, was kind of waiting for stuff to come to me. And then I realized, like, I'm just going to DM them. Like, why not? What's the worst? They say no. I mean, that happens, and it still happens to me. So I try when I can, but sometimes they reach out to me too.
And we can't be afraid of the no. Like, I've made some really greedy asks too and been completely shut down. But if I don't ask, then there's no opportunity at all. 100%. If you were to slide into a brand's DMs or send them an email, what does that look like coming from you?
I always start with like, I love your product, and I genuinely use it for behind the chair, in the salon, whatever it is. And I really would love to work for you in any capacity. And I usually say, is there any opportunities for a partnership? And I also, something that I've learned that's great is if you can almost pitch them, not yourself, but an idea for their brand. Like, hey, I'm doing this series of products I could never live without, and X shampoo is genuinely something I could never live without. Like, I'd love to include you in that series. Is there a possibility of us working together on that? So, it goes further if you actually can not only tell them like, hey, I have a big audience, but also like, here's exactly what I want to do. And they're like, oh, wait, that sounds cool. So yeah, I mean, and there's all variations of that. If you maybe have never worked with a brand, I always suggest just say, I love to be added to like your PR list, and you can get some free product and post about it or whatever. But I think if you're ever looking for or even you could suggest something like, I want to do this with your product for a free product. But I would say if you are looking to have like a paid situation, I think you're always at an advantage if you can suggest a specific idea or topic or whatever.
Such a hot tip. And what I was realizing as you were talking is people will come to us asking about brand partnership and say, let us know what you have in mind.
Right.
I don't have an idea in mind. You came to me. But when you said if you broach the conversation with, I see the opportunity. This is what it could look like. I'd be happy to support you. It really does take the pressure off and is a much stronger pitch to the person receiving.
100%. Because that is the thing of the ideas. And that's what everybody struggles with is, how do I say this in my voice? And how does the brand tell you to say it? Like, it's a whole thing. So if you can just right off the bat give them an idea, then you're great.
Huge.
Yeah.
Have you ever walked away from a partnership?
Yes, I have. And it mostly comes down to, at some point I have to look at financially, is this serving me versus the time it's taking me? Some things are very low value money-wise, but they are super high value for like opportunities and things that I actually want to do. So if I walk away from a partnership, it's mostly because, okay, this is taking me so much time and it's not really making a dent in my income or finances. The other reason I would walk away from something is just like we don't align as far as like values, or maybe the product has shifted or the people have shifted. There's not many reasons if it's a product I genuinely love, but there are some for sure. And I just have to assess for the time versus the money, and also for my own like peace. Is this worth it?
Completely. And you touched on the time it takes, and that's a piece of brand partnership I think is really misunderstood. It's not like they give you a certain amount of money and you film whatever. It's extremely specific. Without saying what your rates are, can you give a sense of, if somebody really wants to get into like influencer marketing or working with brands, what could somebody get range-wise for making sponsored posts or things like that? What have you seen?
Yeah. I mean, I'm an open book, so I'm happy to talk about my own personal, if you're okay with that.
Please.
I think you, though, there's a huge range. Like I said, there's all the way down like free product and no money to all the way up. I mean, some people are making, in the hair industry, people are probably making $5,000 a post. I'm usually like $2,500 to $3,500 for like a reel, depending on, again, how bad do I want to work with the brand. And I'll do stuff for free all the time, though. If it's somebody I want to work with or there's opportunities beyond that, I will 100% work for free. And for like just a carousel post, I'll do more like $1,500 up to like 5 slides. I mean, I don't have like that's the basis, and then I adjust based on how much time it's going to take me, etc. But it's so hard to say. I would honestly ask ChatGPT for a great jumping off point. I think that's an incredible tool for things like this, where it is so varied. But I would say if a brand is reaching out to me, or if I even reach out to a brand and they ask me what my fee is, or if a brand comes to me and says, what's your fee for this? I always kind of give a general idea, and then I say, but if it's somebody I want to work with, I'm like, I'd love to work with you. So if you had a different budget in mind, I'd love to talk about that. Leave it open. Like if it's an opportunity you really want, sometimes companies will grow with you. Like a lot of companies I started off doing one-off posts for, and then I've grown to like have long-term contracts with them. So, but yes, to your point, it is not just make a post on whatever and they're going to pay you all this money. I mean, I'm working with a brand right now that is so specific about, I've had to go refilm, revoiceover because it has to be just exactly what they want me to say. So there's all ranges, but I would say keep in mind, like practice at first if you've never done this, and I would take on anything, but down the line, you just have to assess, is this worth my time? Is this worth my hassle?
I really appreciate you talking about the reality that sometimes it is just free products. Sometimes it's nothing. I still work for free all the time too. And there's a huge side of this space that's about networking and connection and experience. And it's so much more than the money.
Right.
It's a much
100%.
deeper path and journey that we're walking.
Oh, yeah.
In 2025, you shared that one of your sponsorship relationships fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
How did that feel for you? Did you see it coming? What was the impact?
It was a blow to my ego at first, honestly. I have to be honest. I was like, what? Really? But, it's okay. And just like the clients that you thought were like lifers and love you, go elsewhere. And that is, I get it, especially brands and this new, because influencers, quote unquote, in the hair industry are fairly new. This is something we've seen in the last 7, maybe 10 years. So I get brands are trying to figure it out too. Brands, invest in one thing and then they're like, that's not really working, let's switch it up. So in big picture, I totally get it. It was a brand I'd worked with for quite a while, so I was kind of surprised in that aspect, just that I got like a very generic email. And then once I posted that, people were like, oh, was that X brand? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, I got that email too. So it happens, but overall, I just always try and look at those things as an opportunity to make room for something else. And it is because that particular brand, which first of all, I'll just go out and say all these companies, they seem huge and like they have these teams and it is just a big mess. And I don't mean that like offensively to the brands, but you kind of go in thinking, okay, it's going to be this clear thing, whatever. And I'm a mess too, by the way. So, I'm right there with them, but this one particular company would just send me no ideas and it's like waiting to get back the idea approved. And it was a whole thing. And so when I got let go of that, I was kind of like, that sucks, but also like I'm not that mad about it because it freed up time for me, really. But it's just one of those things. It's going to happen. Like, again, if you put yourself out there, you're not going to work for everybody. So
I really appreciate you sharing that. I've had a similar experience with brands too. And not that there's not wonderful brands out there. I've worked with some amazing people who've taken great care of me.
Yes.
But it's almost like the bigger the brand, the more you realize this is just humans trying to figure it out because it's just as complex and tricky on the back end as a smaller business would navigate. It's just 100%. A little different than you'd expect it to be.
Oh my God. I was shocked. Some of these brands, I'm like, and they have these social teams and it's like 12 people all telling you something different and you're trying to make edits. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like somebody just tell me the word, give me the script and I will say it. And it's a learning experience for sure.
If somebody is interested in becoming an educator, whether it be in person or being a brand educator or educating online, if they want to get started, what are a couple of things you'd advise them to start with?
First of all, the biggest thing is just start talking about it. That seems so like, well, duh, but you'd be surprised how many people are like, I really want to educate. The biggest one is I really want to work with a brand. And then I look at their social media and there's not a peep about this brand. I'm like, no offense, friend, but nobody is just like going to your salon seeking you out like, I really want to work with her. You have to make it known that you want to work with these brands. That's every social media is soul sucking. I get it. It's a pain. It feels like a pain. It feels like a job. It is a job. But that is the only way you're getting noticed by a brand at this point. I mean, I just hate to be the bearer of bad news. That is it. Same with education. Honestly, I mean, where are people going for education? They're going straight to social media. And that's how I think the flow is they find your page and then they're like, oh, I like the style. And then let me check what they have for sale. So my best advice is, number one, do not start with a subscription, even though I think you and I did it backwards, really. It did end up panning out for us. Thankfully, I would absolutely never recommend anybody starting with a subscription. I would 100% say start posting on your Instagram, have the mindset of I'm not going to gatekeep and see where that gets you. If down the line you're like, people, I'm not signing up because I learned so much. I learned too much on your social media, then fine, adjust it. But at first, I think not gatekeeping is really crucial to any success. And then I would say try an ebook. I think that's the easiest one. It is literally zero investment of money. I see all the time people are like, I invested in this website. I'm like, are you out of your mind? One of my friends was like, I invested $12,000 in a custom website. And I'm like, ooh, like, the amount of time it's going to take you to to make up for that is insane. And I would say get a Canva template and fill it in. Whether it's like you are the root melting expert and you can put 5 pages about root melting, you can put 10 pages about how to do select the right formula, do that and sell it for cheap, make it an extremely low point of entry. So I feel like you need that, what does my ads person always call it? Like almost like the gateway drug to you. It's like you need that really low ticket entry point for people to want to invest $300, $400. I also think that is a huge mistake. I see people come in with these 7-module courses and they're $500 and they have never made a single education piece. And I'm like, for one, don't do that to yourself because you got to invest in video. You got to edit. Even if you do it yourself, you got to edit it. You got to figure out how to sell that on a website. Sell a freaking ebook and see how it goes. Like, drives me insane because the subscription thing we're saying. So that would be 100% my advice, is just start talking about it and don't get caught up in, well, I still need to get clients. How do I educate? They go hand in hand. I stand strongly behind this. Clients want to see the process too. And you don't have to be like posting formulas all the time. You could say, this is ideal for a client that wants X, X, and X. And here's the products I use and why I love this for that client, you know? Posting is the easiest way, and then start small and just work your way up. Don't put all this pressure on yourself to show up weekly for a subscription or this or that. Like, I just think we make it way too hard on ourselves.
Completely agree. And starting as an educator is not so different as starting as a stylist, where it's like, keep it simple, lower price points, smaller menu, refine. And ultimately, you'll be able to have the big ticket, the high demand, the wait list.
100%.
Give yourself a little grace.
Yeah.
For the stylist who's just starting to build, I was telling you before we started this interview about my daughter, who's, 3 years into the industry, booth renter now, working to build a clientele.
Right.
Working on her speed, working on her technique.
Yeah.
What advice would you give her as she builds her clientele forward?
Yeah. I mean, my biggest thing with technical skills is just get two placements you love and you feel confident with and redesign them for every client. I mean, that sounds very cliche and simple, but you'd be surprised how many people are just going in hoping for the best and popping in foils everywhere on every client. And I'm like, nothing will make you feel more defeated than trying a new placement on every single client and trying all these new things. Predictability and like repeating things is what builds your confidence. So if you're going in just hoping for the best every time, I mean, that is a crusher to your confidence. And I'm speaking from experience here. And the other thing that it helps with, if you just kind of get down a couple placements, is efficiency. Once again, you get quicker at something and better at it by doing it. And why are we going in just doing these crazy things because you saw so-and-so do it on TikTok? I'm not saying don't try new stuff, of course, but don't get so caught up in like, oh, I shouldn't be doing the same placement. Do the same placement. I did the same 2 placements on like, I mean, people think I'm exaggerating. Ask any of my assistants. I am doing the same thing on everybody. I'm just tweaking it for, she wants to be brighter on the face. Okay, we want more dimension in the back. She wants to be brighter on the ends, that kind of a thing. So that's my biggest advice for technical skills. Obviously, give yourself grace. Doing hair is like anything. It is so hard, but it's like anything else. The skills, you're not innately born with this like ability to do blended highlights. You got to practice. And then my other thing for just building a clientele is, I think we are quick to, you always talk about, Britt, like it's a client's market versus a stylist market. And I think more than ever, we are in a client's market. They are so picky. They are crying on the internet about any little thing. And I would say, don't go in with an arrogance of like, I'm a celebrity here. I don't know when this shifted that like we think we're too good for customer service. I don't know. It's been a very interesting journey. And thank God we've gotten past the point where we're like making critical reels about our clients. I'm like, you guys have got to be kidding me. I can't believe what we're doing here. We've kind of gotten out of that, but I still think there's this air of like, well, if you don't want to pay my prices, don't come. And it's like, okay, I get it to a certain extent. And people have unfortunately never placed a lot of like, somehow there's this thing about the industry where it's like stylists shouldn't make a lot of money. I don't know. I hate this kind of like like box that we get put in. And there's people like you changing that for everybody. But we have to go in thinking this is a customer service industry. Like to some extent, we have to serve our clients. And we can't just have them come in. We like give them a nod when they get there, like, hey, 1 second. And then like we don't greet them with a smile. These little things are the reason people are coming back to you or they're moving on. I don't care how good you are at their highlights. If you can't give them an experience that is so valuable to them and so pleasant for them, they're moving on. Like they just are. So I think above everything else, as far as actually, you could be good at the skill and get them to stay with that, but getting them to come back, it all comes down to how you treat them, how you make them feel comforted in your salon space. Little things like smiling, literally. I mean, I go back to that. It sounds so stupid. Or like, hey, I'm going to mix your color. The bathroom's right over here if you need it. Actually listening to them in consultations, being extremely realistic about what they can assume is possible today versus what's not, even if it's not what they want to hear. All those little things are truly, I always say building a clientele is 80% your personality and how you treat them, and it's literally 20% skill. I mean, so many of my clients, I mean, I was not I was not great at hair. I really was not. And I made a lot of mistakes. And some of those people stuck with me anyway, because I think I was very client forward. Again, in 2007, you had no choice. That was the only way you were getting and keeping clients. But don't make the clients feel like they're bothering you and a burden to you when they come in. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad. Like, I'm thankful that you're here. And I think we really need to reframe that, because we've really stepped away from that. We have this thing of, I can charge so much and I have nothing to back it up. And I think to some extent, fine if you're at a certain level, but still just the ego, we need to just like chill a little bit on that. But I just feel that we're far from, we've lost the plot a little bit,
I couldn't agree more with everything that you just said.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a portion of the industry did lose the plot. Have you heard me talk about what I call the Great Divide?
Yes, I've heard your podcast about it.
Okay, so this is completely that. And what you're talking about now is the piece I could not have seen coming. I didn't expect our industry to turn on our own clientele. That was a real curveball for me.
Yeah.
And I do think, unfortunately, those who choose that route of villainizing the clients, we will lose them at some point in the next 3 to 5 years, which will be unfortunate for those who decide to go that direction. But for those who do exactly what you just said and focus on guest experience and remember to smile and take great care of people.
Yes.
The reason why our industry is AI proof is because we still get to touch people and connect and be human and be patient and give grace.
Yes.
And as soon as we lose that, we have totally lost the plot. And when you look at people who are able to charge amazing prices and still have wait lists, a lot of people talk about salons are empty, chairs are empty. Not in the places that I'm looking.
Yes.
Because the service is still there and people still get it. And when we look at our industry talking about clients want us to be broke, they don't want you to be broke, but they also don't understand that you're raising your rates simply to cover the cost of goods.
Yes. Right.
The rising tide lifts all boats. When the price goes up, the service standard can't go down.
100%.
And that's where we lost the plot.
That is so summed up so perfectly. And a lot of people are very resistant to accept that. And again, this is another place that's the Wild West. People are just out of school, just charging what it took me like 10 years to charge, which again, no shame to them. You got to try things. And this is how you figure out if it works or it doesn't. But sometimes I'm like, people go in, they're like, I want to work 3 days a week. I don't want to take men's cuts and I want to be done by 3:00 every day. I'm like, and that's your prerogative. And I love that for you, and try it out and see how it goes. However, you are going to lose out on some clients. And the other thing that comes with that is the thing of the scheduling situation. Like, I don't want to work Saturdays. I don't want to work nights. And I completely respect that. And I get that. But I think what a lot of people aren't realizing, especially like newer stylists, is that the only reason that I have a client that will come Wednesday at 10 is because for 10 years I did her hair Wednesday at 5. So every 2 months she's fine to take off a morning from work. But if I'm in there and I have nobody knows what I'm doing and I have no like backing rapport with this person, no loyalty, if they're like, I have to come in at 5 p.m., I work. And I'm like, I only have Tuesday at 9 a.m. They're like, well, I don't know you. I'm going to go down the street to Sally, who will take me at 5 p.m. And it's that whole thing. It's like, yet at a certain point, like you said, you can raise your prices, but the standard and guest experience really needs to be elevated or at least stay the same. And it cannot be this vibe of, oh, you're bugging me. Like, what do you want? It's like, these people are paying our bills. What are we doing here? So I know we're so aligned on that.
Completely.
Yeah.
You played the long game and it paid out.
Yes, as I think it does for everybody.
One of the things we talked about too is advanced education. We both love to learn, and one of my favorite things is being a student. Like I find that my inspiration tank runs dry if I'm not like sitting in enough classrooms, like learning enough for myself.
Totally.
How do you find fresh classes to go to on industry educators that you want to learn from? Are you aware of your gaps? Do you like to just put yourself in rooms to see what blind spots come up for you? Like, how do you learn at this point?
Yeah, I pick up so much from small, short form social media content, honestly. Because as I was kind of telling you, I think what makes you a great stylist is like the little bits and pieces you pick up along the way, not one class, not one tool, not one technique. I think it's all that stuff combined together. I do love, like a technique class I do love. And I just kind of like see what's out there a little bit. And I'm willing to just, even if I haven't really heard much about the person, but I do feel like the ones I hear about are the people posting about it a lot, as kind of going back to our other question earlier. So yeah, I mean, I also like to go, to be honest, for my own research, to be like, this, I would never do that, or I love this part of the class. I gotta see what my competition's doing out there. I don't really I really want to learn from the person, but I do take back some pieces that are kind of working or not working. And, I would say, I mean, yeah, I try and switch it up. I try and not repeat a class that I've been to, obviously, but I don't know. I mean, there's so many classes that it's almost like information overload, but I try.
You and I are the same way. I will go to a class where I already understand the subject matter. Sometimes I feel like I might know this more than the facilitator does, but I want to watch the way in which they do it.
Yes.
And I think anybody who is an educator or an aspiring educator should be in classes all the time, because you will learn so much about what is effective teaching versus ineffective teaching.
Totally.
Putting yourself in there. It's like a master class you couldn't even pay for.
100%.
Is sitting in that student seat.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's how I learned the most, honestly. I feel like about, my teaching style, and, okay, that was a miss or that was a win, and I need to kind of like see how I can incorporate that.
Yeah.
Without, obviously, I'm not like copying anybody, but yes, it's just the whole thing of, that worked. Like I could do more of that, or kind of work it that way, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier about kind of like the seasoned stylist who feels like they've seen it all and they've done it all and nothing is advanced enough. And there is still such an educational opportunity for that person. And the way in which you described it was so beautiful, of like, maybe it's not another foiling placement, but what if it's something else? Can you talk to that?
Yeah, totally. I think there is this mindset of like, well, that's not advanced education. And I'm like, well, really, what is advanced education? I mean, if you break down hair in every appointment, we're doing all the same things. I didn't invent some technique. It's really, I think you get advanced when you learn how to combine all those things that you've learned into something that is going to make your client happy. Like, I could teach you how to highlight all day. I could teach you how to get really fast at highlighting. But if you don't have the skill to, highlight and then adding the lowlights, or where should they go, and the strategic planning of that, it's not going to get you that far. So some people think of technical education. I mean, there is something to be said for, here's exactly how you hold your comb, blah, blah, blah. But I think the deeper piece of that, and what sometimes we miss, is that there are so many techniques, and learning how to combine them is what's helpful. And you don't always need to do 500 foils. Like, try doing less foils, try tipping out the ends so that you get brightness there and you don't have to pack in 500 baby lights, that kind of a thing. And just knowing like, I'm going to over direct this. It's going to give me way more softness, or here's exactly how I'm going to formulate my root melt, that kind of a stuff, that kind of a thing where you could learn those all alone, and that's great. And those things seem simple, but then when you have to think of combining them and looking at the inspo photo and being like, okay, here's what she wants, I don't know how to get there. That to me is what's advanced. Mm-hmm. Even like, I can't think of, like maybe it's intimidating. Somebody comes in with a ton of banding and old color, but it's like, okay, we know very specific things. We have to remove the color. We have to erase a line of demarcation, just like, okay, color remover, highlights and lowlights, always remove a line of demarcation. And then we're going to change the tone. So it's like maybe a gloss. Obviously, sometimes not that simplistic, but when you break it down, you know all the steps. You just have to apply them in the right order and together in the right way. So that's kind of what I've focused on now, and just like, don't overdo it. Just get the foundations and then learn how to combine everything.
Do you feel like at this point you're an expert of formulation and placement?
Oh God, no, never.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, there's so much to learn in this industry. I know the things that work for me, and I know how to adjust those for a lot of people, which I think is what a lot of hairstylists don't realize. Like, we kind of talked about this earlier, but you don't need 1,000 things, and you don't need to keep reinventing the wheel for every appointment. And I think that goes for formulation too, honestly, especially with like glosses, and people are mixing 17 things. I'm like, just find 5 colors that work, truly. I mean, brands are going to hate me for saying that. I don't think you need every color in your cabinet, but it's kind of that thing of, you just, I don't know, we just complicate things so much. So I feel like I'm definitely not an expert, but I have found what works for me and makes me feel like more confident when I'm doing hair.
Do you believe that you're successful?
when I step back and I look at it, yes. I mean, there's a lot of pieces where I'm like, ooh, I messed up in that, or I could do this better still. But looking at the things that now define success for me, like I get to drop my kids off and pick them up every day from school. I never have to miss a class party. Like I never have to miss a soccer game. To me, now that is successful. And yes, financially, there's a huge piece to that. And I make no bones about the fact that I love money, and it is very much a driver for me. And I don't know why we're afraid to say, like, I got in this industry to make money. Like, it's crazy to me that we're just like, ugh, whatever. That's a whole nother, we could do a whole nother show about that. I love money. I do. It has allowed me those luxuries of, yeah, I love having money, but like, I know you talk about this. Wealth is much more than just the amount in your bank account. And that is very important to me. And being able to do the things that I want to do and have the freedom to say no to some stuff that I don't want to do. So in that sense, I do step back and I'm like, okay, I've done pretty well for myself. But there's plenty of times where I'm like, I suck at everything, you know, that whole thing. So it's a balance.
You're incredibly wealthy. I totally agree. How will you know that you've made it?
Oh my God. You know, never. I mean, I don't think I'm going to be like, I've made it. There is a certain amount of money that I made, and I was like, never in my wildest dreams. I mean, I'm talking, you know, when I started hair, I was like, if I could have a $500 day in the salon, like I am set. And that was, again, like just there wasn't the idea that you go into hair to make millions of dollars. Like that just was not spoken about. In fact, it was like, you are absolutely the minority if you make legitimate money. I don't think there'll be one defining moment. I mean, being here with you, honestly, is like, whoa, this is like, because I shared with you earlier, I listened to your podcast like religiously, and you had an educator on there, and you said, I never do interviews with anybody. And I was listening to this as like a baby stylist, just like, oh my God, like that is so cool. And now here I am, like part of this project, which is huge. So little things like that, where I look back at hair shows and I'm like, I could never be on stage or do anything like that. It's more the progress of, okay, in that sense, like I feel like, quote unquote, I made it. But if I'm looking at like, you know, again, it's just the freedom of like, I can do these things with my kids and I can do what I want to do. That more feels like the big I made it moment than like, oh, I got this car or whatever, that kind of a thing.
You were top of my list when I decided to do this project.
Thank you.
I am so thankful that almost a decade later, we get to sit across from each other and just soak it up and enjoy.
I love it.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I so appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It means so much. I'm super excited.